We are going over the PPF curve, a little packet we did in class today, or at least we started. Hopefully you got to finish on your own, and if not, you're going to follow along and learn with me. So, we did number 1 in class, the one with Maria working at Wang's Chinese Kitchen. We did that one in class. We went over it in class. So let's go over number 2, the one with the United States Congress. And that goes along with graph B. So there are 2 possible scenarios here. You can have resources towards defense spending, which is your aircraft carriers, or you have resources towards miles of highway. So it's almost like guns and butter. Guns being the defense spending and butter being highways. So this is the constant PPF curve. It's a straight line, and it's constant throughout. So your answers should be the same no matter where you start on this graph. Like on letter A, what's the opportunity cost of 1 aircraft carrier? No matter where you are, 1 aircraft carrier is going to cost you the same on that graph, so everyone's answer should be the same. And it's 300. Not 600, but 300. It's a common mistake, because it's not where we are. Remember, opportunity cost is what you give up to get something else. What are you getting on letter A? You're getting 1 aircraft carrier. What did it cost you? Well, let's say you were at 900 miles of highway. You can't continue 900 miles of highway and get 1 aircraft carrier. You don't have enough resources. So to stay on that PPF curve, you're going to have to go down to 600. So what's the difference? 300 miles of highway. 900 minus 600. That's what you had to give up. Letter B, it's the same kind of question, but it's asking for the other thing. And you see that between aircraft carriers, you're just having to give up 1. For every 300 miles of highway, you're going to have to give up 1 aircraft carrier, no matter where you are on the graph. And C, what other information would you need to decide the best combination of defense spending or highway construction? Well, it just depends what kind of country. What's your quality of highways? Are you at war? Are you at peace? If you're at peace, you probably don't need to be having all that money towards defense spending. If you're at war, probably. What's demanded in that country? It's probably what's going to be produced. Alright, let's look at the back. Okay, there we go. If you had read directions, you would have realized that you're starting at curve BB at every question. So there's only really 3 answer choices here, going from BB to BD, BB to CC, or BB to AA. It's either a rightward shift, a leftward shift, or shifting for one of those. Right there. It's the only option. So, letter 3, it says consumer goods industry. Ceteris paribus, nothing happens with capital. It says technological breakthrough in the consumer goods industry. So it's going to be a shift just for consumer goods, making it from BB from BB to BD. Number 4, it says new government comes into power which forbids automated machinery and modern production techniques in all industries. All industries here. So this is capital and consumer goods. So it's going to be a leftward shift for both of those. So it's going to go to AA. And number 5, it says new coal, oil, those are all factors of production. Those are resources. Technically, they would be land because they're natural resources. And they're widely adopted in both industries. Well, both industries are going to be affected in a positive way, and that's going to go outward, rightward shift, starting from BB, going all the way to CC. Number 6 is talking about point X. Point X is outside of our PPF curve. I don't know if you can see that there. Oh, wrong way. There we go. Point X. Point X is not possible with the resources that we have. It's because of scarcity, we cannot operate at a production level of X. We just don't have the resources. Maybe with more resources we could, but ceteris paribus we don't. And 7. 7 is Y. That's inside our PPF curve. Right there. We talked about this in our quiz today. You could call that possible and inefficient. You could also call that a recession or depression. Basically, we're not using all of our resources. Why a recession? Think of it. When there's a recession or depression, there's factories that are not being used. They're there. It's not like they disappeared. They're just not being used. There's hundreds of thousands of people that are unemployed. They're still alive. They still have working capabilities, but they're not being used. And so that's why we say that's not a recession necessarily isn't a shift. It's just a point inside the line. They're still there. We're just not using them. Okay. Next. We have the same kind of scenario. What would, this time on number 8, you're making up a scenario that would shift it to the right, that would shift your PPF curve out. You could make a really cool explanation, but really it boils down to an increase in the factors of production. Any of those would work. Number 9, we kind of talked about this, it's a recession or inefficiency. Number 10, why would a government need to go from point B to point A? Well, at point B, it looks like they're making a decent amount of consumer goods and fewer capital goods. And A is more capital. It's just as simple as they need more capital. That's what's demanded. That's what's needed at that moment. Not all that hard. Let's go to the back. Okay. So, really there's 3 answers that you could possibly put, and that's what I noticed when I did this, on all of these 9 situations. So the first one says show and explain. On the AP test, show literally means you have to graph. Explanation is just maybe 2-3 words, maybe an arrow or 2, explaining why, connecting the scenario with your graph, not telling what the graph is saying. If there's a leftward shift, why is there a leftward shift? If there's a rightward shift, why is there a rightward shift? Explain does not say leftward shift. Your graph already says that. So connect your answer, which is the graph, to the question. Okay, so let's look at the first left-hand box. Show and explain the change to long run when the nation's interest rates decline. Okay, for this class, every time you see interest rates, you're going to think about how does that affect businesses. Why? Okay, you're thinking, well, why would it only affect businesses? Why can't it just affect people too? Production possibilities. You don't produce anything. Businesses do. Businesses, firms, stores, they're the ones producing. So sure, in some far-off galaxy, interest rates going down will affect you. But this is not what that's not what you're graphing. You're graphing production. And so you're only going to think in this case about businesses. Interest rates is what you have to pay back on a loan. The higher the interest rates, the more you have to pay back. The lower the interest rates, the less you have to pay back. So if interest rates are down, it's like a loan is on sale. If interest rates are really high, it's like the loan costs more for you, so you're probably not going to buy it, the loan. So if nation's interest rates go down, they decline, businesses can now take out more money because they're having to pay less back, and now they can produce more. And so that would be a rightward shift for both capital and consumer goods, because it doesn't say that they're taking out loans just for capital, and then it doesn't say it's taking out loans just for consumer goods, so we're assuming it's both. And if you look at the bottom of the page, that right-hand box, it's just the opposite. The nation experiences higher interest rates. They're having to pay more money back to the bank. If they have to do that, they're not going to take out as big as a loan, which means they're not going to buy as many FOBs, which means they can't possibly produce as much as they were, which means it's a leftward shift for both capital and consumer goods. Let's look at the top right-hand box. Long run, show and explain, long run when the nation experiences a decline in the birth rate. Okay, in the long run, not in a day, but in the long run, let's say 18 years when these people are trying to, the people that were born are starting to get into labor force. If there's a decline in the birth rate, less babies are being born. In 18 years, that means less people are entering the workforce. That means less stuff is being made. So if less stuff is being made, it's going to be a leftward shift for both capital and consumer goods. Let's talk about the middle left. Show and explain a change in economic growth when the nation chooses to spend more on consumer goods. This one's tricky because it requires you to know something you might not know now. If a nation chooses to spend more on consumer goods, let's say capital goods being shelves and consumer goods being paper plates in a grocery store. If the nation decides to build more paper plates, right now it's just a movement. That's just a short run change. They're going from maybe a little bit of both to just a whole lot of one and a whole lot less of the other. So it's just a movement towards paper plates, towards consumer goods. But if that trend continues and we focus all of our energy, all of our resources, all of our time on making shirts and paper plates and things that go on the shelves, our economy's not growing. Stores are not getting bigger. They're not hiring more people. They just have more stuff on the shelves. That doesn't mean that's not good. It's not good to have the same Walmart with more stuff in it. What you want is two Walmarts. Because you know what two Walmart has that the first Walmart doesn't? Twice as many as employees, which means more paychecks, which means economic growth. That's economic growth. And so in the long run, if we focus all of our attention and have a movement closer towards consumer goods, in the long run, it's actually going to shrink the economy. It's going to be a leftward shift for both. Because if you spend all your time making paper plates, you're not growing your business. You're just selling more paper plates. But you're not really growing more business and having a second location open up and hiring people and becoming a global company. You're just, I was selling 5 paper plates, but now I'm selling 6. That's not economic growth. Economic growth is a now hiring sign. That's economic growth. Okay, let's do middle right-hand side. A nation experiences a recession. Okay, in the short run, it's going to be that point inside the line. But I said in the long run. And remember, in the long run, that's a shift. That's not a movement. So in the long run, if all those factories that have been not being used for a decade, let's say, and all those people have been unemployed for a decade, in the long run, that's actually going to shrink our economy. In the recession that we just had, 08, 09, 10, our economy did a standstill. It didn't really shrink. It mainly just stopped moving. But during the Great Depression, when it was much more severe and much more intense and longer, our economy actually shrunk. All right, bottom left. Show and explain change to economic growth when the nation experiences an increase in research and development by corporations. All right, that right there is the investment in capital goods. And when there's doing research, and that's actual growth. So it's going to be a rightward shift for both capital and consumer goods. Why both? They're going to invest in like a maybe fancier shelves, but now they need to put things on their shelves, so they need those paper plates as well. So it's going to be a rightward shift for both capital and consumer goods. So remember, short run change is just a movement. Long run change is a shift. If it's going to basically affect all sorts of scenarios, it's going to be a rightward shift for both, or a leftward shift for both. If it's just going to affect one, and don't assume it's going to affect everything. So if it just says one, mainly stick with that one thing, unless you're talking about a long run change like we did here. Okay, hopefully this answers any questions that you have. If you do have more questions, hit me up on all of the devices that you can contact me on. Email me, tweet me, send me a message on Remind 101, post something on Google Classroom. Any of those you can possibly do, and I will respond. So hopefully this was informative and not too long. Oh, holy crap, it was 14 minutes. I need to go. Goodbye.